Bonjour! Myself and my family of four are heading to Paris! This video will be covering generalities about our trip, including why Paris, a general overview of what we are considering doing, the budget for the trip and how we're going to pay for it, and lastly, well, I have one teenager and one preteen. Are we excited to go? So the first question, why go to Paris? I was the youngest of 5 children, and my parents took us to Europe several times. We actually went to Africa, we went to Europe. I probably traveled overseas 4 or 5 times during my youth, and it was a great experience. It has definitely opened up my eyes to the world. It gives you a sense of culture that you just cannot replicate without actually being there in person. So in my opinion, it's kind of like it's about time because my kids have never seriously left the country. We walked across at Niagara Falls. We walked across into Canada one time, but other than that, they've never left the United States. We have traveled around the United States quite a bit. We've been to Disney World several times, I think 3 times. We went to Niagara Falls, various places. We went to several places in Missouri, like Branson, and to the St. Louis Arch. We've been to Massachusetts, and to Minneapolis, and to Iowa to visit family. And it's time for us to branch out outside of the United States. This is a major priority for both my husband and myself. Both Dave and I traveled quite a bit when we were in our 20s. And of course, I traveled a lot as a child, and we both traveled as part of college and in our early 20s and so on. We both went overseas, separately. We hadn't met yet, but we both were really into travel, and we always pictured ourselves raising children who also traveled and kind of had that larger world view. So for us, it's always been a priority. Now, why Paris? If you're really wanting to open up the minds of our youth, you'd want to take them someplace a little more creative than Paris. However, there's a few reasons why Paris is a good place to start overseas travel, especially for children. First of all, there is quite a lot to do in Paris, and it's an exciting place to be. The food is really good. It has a large international airport. There's many things to do right within the city. Plus, it has a central location to Northern Europe, to a number of the things that we want to go to, some outings that we want to take, which I will be discussing in a little bit. Plus, it does have a culture that's pretty separate from our own. Of course, there's the language barrier. I would like my kids to be able to learn some words in foreign languages when we travel to foreign countries. So in France, they're going to be learning some of the pleasantries in the French language. Please and thank you and you're welcome and excuse me and where is the bathroom? Plus, the language barrier plays into some cultural differences as well. For example, when you first walk into a shop, my understanding is that it is very, very rude to walk into a shop and not immediately say bonjour. And that's not really something that we do in the United States. We don't necessarily say hello to the clerk when we walk into a shop. We simply walk in and start shopping. But in Paris, it's considered very rude not to do that. So that will be something that the kids will be getting used to. So not only will they have this word in a foreign language, but they'll also sort of learn some etiquette that is foreign to our own. Well, we eventually want to go to some more challenging destinations down the line. I would like to go to Thailand or Vietnam, for example. I'm not sure I would spend an entire month in India with the kids, but maybe I would. It seems to me that Thailand is probably more family-friendly than India. Although I've never been to Thailand, I have been to India and I've heard a lot about Thailand. So I think Thailand would probably be our first destination in Asia to go to. And then there's a few places in Africa, for example, that we'd like to go to. But Paris, I think, is a good start. It has a culture that's different from our own, but alike enough to our own that it won't be completely outside of the kids' wheelhouse, I think. I think not. In some ways, I wish we had started this earlier. I wish we had gone to Paris when the kids were, say, 6 and 9. Right now, our kids are 10 and 13, and it feels a little bit late to be starting their journeys outside of the United States, especially the 13-year-old. He's about to go into high school, so it's kind of too bad that he hasn't already had the experience of Paris, so that by now we would have moved on to some more challenging destinations. But at the same time, when the kids were very young, we thought it probably wasn't wise to spend our money on an overseas vacation. It's a bit of a hassle to get, kids a passport and things like that. So you want to make sure that all that time and money and effort is not wasted. So when the kids were younger, we just went to Disney World pretty much. We did road trips around America, or we would go to Disney World. I would say the timing for this probably would have been a couple of years ago to start, but we were in the midst of a pandemic, and so we weren't really able to go the last 3 years. So the timing, it's probably as bright as it's ever going to be. I'm not sure that you can ever get the timing perfect for something like this. I will say, when I was a child and going to these kind of exotic destinations, I probably didn't fully appreciate them, but nonetheless, I think looking back, I still had, even when I was, say, 5 or 10, when I first started remembering these kind of trips, I would definitely say that I didn't fully appreciate the experience, but that I had an understanding that it was important and that I was picking up on some cultures. And so, no, it wasn't a perfect experience, but I don't think travel ever is anyway. So I can always look back and say, I went to these places when I was a kid. And so, I don't know. Part of me thinks maybe it's not the wrong thing to take young children to these destinations. But either way, here we are. Our kids are the age that they are. They're going to be 11 and 14 when we go, because that'll be after their birthday. So, all right, so let's do a general overview of what the trip is going to be like. So as I said, it's going to be 4 weeks. Not every day is going to be joyful and full of great fun. Mostly what we want to have is 4 weeks of the kids experiencing a culture, simply being present in a foreign place and having that experience. Ideally, my personal thought is that the kids should be thinking about maybe moving overseas at some point, not being afraid of that as a possibility. Oftentimes in the United States, we really don't picture a life overseas. And so I would like to, they certainly don't have to move overseas, but I would like them to understand that it's an option for them. It's a viable option to move overseas and have a good life over someplace else other than the United States. If they choose to stay in the United States, that's one thing, but I don't want them to think that they can't live somewhere else, if that makes sense. Anyway, so we're going to be spending 4 weeks basically settled into French culture. Of course, we're going to go and see touristy things such as the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre. And so a big part of this is making sure that we're in the right neighborhood so that we can really experience that Parisian culture every day. So our Airbnb for the month is going to be in Montmartre. In the neighborhood, this is the neighborhood that is around the Sacré-Cœur. It's the one that, if you've seen the movie Amélie, that's where she lives. And I think this Emily in Paris, I think she also lives in this neighborhood, but I'm not sure. I haven't watched that show. Anyway, so every single day is not going to be full of touristy things and vacation-y kind of things, but it is going to be full of cobblestone streets and outdoor cafes and croissant for breakfast and café au lait, and being able to sit on the steps of a Sacré-Cœur and watching the artists do their work and maybe riding the carousel. And that is going to be an incredibly valuable experience. It is a little bit more of an expensive neighborhood to stay in, but I thought that part of it was really important, that we didn't have to get on a train and travel to a neighborhood where you had good Parisian style, that rather that we were settled right in the center of everything. I do suspect during this month that the kids will get homesick at times. They'll simply want to be back where everything is actually familiar. But at the same time, even at those times when, I don't know, you're sick of the cobblestone streets, or you're sick of the hills or the stairs up to our Airbnb or whatever, oftentimes those are the kinds of strains that you'll actually remember fondly after travel is over. That's the trick of travel, in my opinion, is that it's not always fun in the moment. Oftentimes it's only fun in the remembrance. You remember something fondly that even sometimes things that you didn't like that much at the time. It's kind of magical that way. It's strange. All right, during this month, though, we won't be just sitting in this one neighborhood in Paris. We'll actually be getting out for at least 3 outings. A possible 4th outing is we might go to Versailles, but I have not actually ever been there, so I'm not sure how easy it is to get there. If it's easy to go there for a day, then we will certainly go to Versailles. The other 3 places we'll be going are Disneyland Paris, to Mont Saint-Michel, and to a town in Germany that we visited quite a bit as a child, where we still have friends there, and where our family actually came from. That came from this town. So Disneyland, I think it's called Disneyland Paris. The idea is we're going to spend one day there, one very expensive day. We're going to go ahead and get the ultimate passes, whatever they're called, the universal passes, which they're expensive on top of course, the ticket price. So we spent a lot of time in Disney World. And so the kids are pretty familiar with all the flavor of Disney World, and it looks to me like Disneyland Paris is basically the Magic Kingdom, and then in walking distance is another land that kind of looks like Hollywood Studios. And it looks like the rides are kind of like a nice sampling of some of our favorites from the parks in Disney World. And what's more, the rides have enough of a difference and enough of a twist that many people actually attest that the rides in Disneyland Paris are better than the rides at Disney World. I don't know if I'm starting a war by saying that, but anyway, that's what I've heard. It seems to me like, for example, Space Mountain, which, by the way, the last time we were in Disney World, my younger son, Grayson, was not able to ride because he was not tall enough to ride Space Mountain at that time. He will be able to ride it at Disneyland Paris, and apparently it's actually like turbocharged. It has like a launch, and it goes upside down and all kinds of stuff. So the same flavor of ride, but with more stuff in it. So that's kind of an exciting option. Anyway, we're going to buy this pass that allows us to go on every single ride one time. So we're going to just try to get everything done. We're going to get on a train that takes us there early in the morning. We get in early in the morning. We ride every single ride. We're going to eat at a restaurant. If we can get in, we're going to eat at a restaurant that's actually inside of the ride, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and which is also new. That Disney World doesn't have anything like that. So that's going to be one of our outings. It's going to be a good day. And hopefully we'll be able to do everything and we won't need a second day because it's expensive. Another of the outings that we're going to do is we're going to go to Mont Saint-Michel, which is one of my favorite places in France. And it's in the very northern part of France. It is quite touristy. The way that a lot of people experience Mont Saint-Michel is they get on a bus in Paris. They spend the 3 or 4 hour ride in a bus. It's a tourist situation. It's a tourist bus. They arrive at 11 in the morning or whatever, kind of peak tourism time of the day. And it's absolutely overrun with all of these busloads of people. Mont Saint-Michel is this beautiful little town that has these very steep, windy roads and steps going up to an abbey at the top of it. And then the amazing views out over this flat land and the English Channel. I'm really excited to go there. We went there several times when I was a child, so I'm really excited to show the kids that. But I didn't really want that experience of that very touristy, crowded kind of experience. So what we're going to do is we're going to rent a car in Paris. We're going to drive out in the evening, in the afternoon and evening. We'll spend one night in one of the small hotels, one of the small towns around Mont Saint-Michel, and then we'll get up first thing in the morning and we'll zip over to Mont Saint-Michel, walk around. It probably only takes 2 or 3 hours to see the place. We might have a small breakfast or something, and see all the things there are to see there. And then we'll hop back in our car by the time all the buses are pulling up. So that's going to be great. And then we'll have time that day then to keep on going up the way. We'll see Normandy Beach and Granville and some of the other areas around Normandy. And then I think we'll just come back to Paris that same evening. I think. I'm not sure. Who knows? Who knows how that's going to go? So that's going to be our second outing. Our third outing is to go to the Saar Valley in Germany, which is where my family comes from. We actually know quite a lot of the history. We know exactly when they left. We know exactly what the town looks like. We visited many times when I was a child. Definitely every time that we came to Europe, we went through Saarburg several times, as I recall. And we always stayed at the Saarburger Hof. So we will be staying there as well. Yeah, it's expensive. It is expensive there. I was pretty surprised. I remember it not being that expensive. I think they've made some upgrades. It looks pretty nice now. But Saarburg is just the most picturesque, perfect little German village. So we're gonna spend 2 nights at the Saarburger Hof. We still have friends in the area, friends of the family, so we're gonna visit with them. Hopefully, if they're, I haven't actually checked with them, but hopefully we're just gonna make sure that we're there at a time that they're available to come visit with us, and we'll get to know this tiny little town really well. And then we'll drive back on the third day. We'll spend as much time as we want in the Saar Valley. Maybe have some Saar wine. They're known for their white wines there. And then head back to Paris on the third day. So I'm not really sure of the timing of all of these outings. The Disney trip, the Mont Saint-Michel trip, and the Saarburg trip are going to be various times. I'm not really sure. Some of it depends on when Dave can join us. Dave, my husband, isn't going to be able to join us for all 4 weeks. So hopefully for 2 weeks, and I'm thinking it's probably going to be the first 2 weeks that we're there. We'll probably have him with us because he has like a regular job. He can only take so much time off, you know. The budget for something like this is a bit overwhelming. I'm not sure how much a lot of things are going to cost. There are some things that I do know the cost, and there are other things. Most things I really have no idea. I think I'll put together sort of a spreadsheet estimate, but I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it because it is overwhelming. So there are 6 basic categories of budget things: accommodations, the transatlantic flight, on the ground transport, including the transport to get us from our home to the airport here in the United States, and then things like metro passes and in Paris, and the RER that goes to Disney and things like that, and the rental car, things like that. The 3 pricey outings that we're going to be having. And number 5 is food. I just have no idea how much. I think there's most other things I can actually budget for, but the food, I have no idea. My understanding is there are shops where you can buy really high quality meals frozen and take them back to your accommodations and heat them up in the microwave. They're supposed to be absolutely delicious. They have whole stores devoted to that concept. So high quality frozen meals. So hopefully we'll do lots of those. But of course, we're probably going to have breakfast out most mornings, and we'll probably have some really nice lunches and some really nice dinners too scattered in there. So it's really, I have no idea how much to budget for food. And then there's other costs. We'll probably get SIM cards for our phones, but I'm not sure about that. We've never been great at getting SIM cards, but if it's easy enough, we'll do it because that'll save us a lot of money on our phone bill. We have to pay for dog sitters for our dog for at least the 2 weeks that Dave is going to be away. So there's going to be people in our house, just so you understand. We're not going to be leaving our house empty. Our house won't be empty. So how are we going to pay for this? It sure sounds fancy when you say you're going to spend 4 weeks in Paris. It sounds like you are money bags, but we are not. We have good jobs, but we're solid middle class. We have nice professional jobs, but we earn a paycheck. We work for other people. There's nothing fancy about us. We have our monthly expenses that are still gonna be there while we're in Paris. So I basically spent a year working extra side jobs. Basically, over the entire year, any kind of extra money that I've made sort of went into the Paris fund. So I had a speaking gig over the summer, last summer. I attended a seminar for which I received a stipend. It was a 7-week seminar. I received a stipend at the end of that. I also got a bonus from my job. All of those funds together paid for our accommodations. Since we want to be in kind of one of the hot neighborhoods in Paris, Montmartre, it's so awkward. Since we're going to be in this trendy neighborhood, the accommodations were going fast. So we're staying at an Airbnb for a month. They were all getting booked up, and so I had to quickly find something. And an Airbnb, you kind of have to pay for it up front. At least that's what I did. I don't know if there's a way around it, but you kind of have to pay for it right away. So those were the funds that I used to pay for our accommodation. So that's actually been settled. We know exactly the dates that we're going to be there, and that's been settled since last summer. Now, pretty soon I'm going to be paying for our international flights, our transatlantic flights, and so we have to buy 4 round-trip tickets between Chicago and Paris. So 2 of those flights I think are going to be paid for. One of them is going to be paid for with miles. We have reward cards. We're kind of new to the reward card business, so let's hope it all goes smoothly. We have enough points for 1 ticket. We also have, I think we have with our reward card, I believe we have a companion flight each year. So I think 2 of our tickets will be covered. That means we have to purchase the other 2. And airfare right now is super pricey. So that's going to be, so part of what I'm doing to pay for that is right now I'm actually teaching an extra class in the spring semester. And so that's going to be going toward that, and maybe a little bit left over. I don't know. We'll see how much those flights end up being. And I would say that extra pay will probably also pay for all of the on-the-ground transport as well. So what that leaves is the 3 outings that we plan to take, and all the food we have to buy, which again is a very unknown quantity, and then also all of the other costs that I haven't really thought of, I'm sure, at this point yet. Things are going to come up. So to pay for the rest of this, I'm going to be actually teaching online. I'm teaching an online class. It hasn't fully gone through yet, so let's hope that it goes through, because this is really going to help out a lot with all the costs that we're going to have associated with this trip. Now, I'm not really sure whether I'll be earning enough to actually cover all of these costs, but we do have to remember, too, that we won't be home for that month. So normally, when the kids are home for the summer, it's pricey. You know, they have activities going on, hockey practice and hockey equipment and things like that to purchase, a summer camp, pool passes, Six Flags passes. We're not purchasing any of that for next summer. The only thing we're really doing is Paris. And so you have to look at it that way too, is we're actually saving money by not doing our regular summer, like our regular summer in the United States. I'm not sure how much that compensates, but it like I said, summer usually is an expensive time anyway, so it does make up for some of it. And so the last question, are we excited? Well, I sure am. I've been excited since the start. My family, they're never going to be as excited as me. Our family works kind of slow to accept new ideas. Oftentimes new ideas, they take a little bit of time to steep before people start to get on board with them. You know? Maybe that's human nature, but it's certainly the nature of this family. I brought it up a full year ahead of time. I sort of brought up the idea last summer and started thinking about it and planning it at that time. And I approached it sort of like this. I already had a trip to Disney World planned for October. And I put it to the family like this. I said, we can't do both. We can't do our trip to Disney World in October and do Paris in the summer. So you have to choose one. And everybody said they wanted to do Paris. So I think that actually helped, that they were choosing it. It helped them to accept it a little bit more. Now, the 8th grader, the 13-year-old, he has been a little bit more reluctant to get on board with this whole thing, but thankfully he has some friends who told him that it seemed really cool, a really cool thing to do. So thanks, friends. It makes it a little bit easier when your friends say, that sounds pretty cool. So every so often it comes up, somebody will say something like, we're still going to Paris, aren't we? Paris is still happening, isn't it? It's almost like they can't really believe it's going to happen until it happens, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Things are in place. Things are in place. As soon as I get those airline tickets too, that's really going to help them. We got the kids their passports. We're going to be purchasing the tickets in the next couple of weeks, the airline tickets. The accommodation is already done. So a matter of getting there and staying there, that's pretty much already in place. Yep, we're on our way. I don't know if everything that I'm planning is going to happen, but certainly a lot of it will. So yes, by and large, I would say yes, we are excited as a family to do this. It's going to be a great experience for us, and I will be filming more leading up to it, and of course I'll be filming a lot of our actual trip there once we're in Paris and doing all these different outings. So follow along, keep watching, listen for the Parisian music, and that'll mean we're doing another video about Paris.